talking from ancient Ghana to 1957. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff, but thank you all for this opportunity. Okay. The screen is in the way. Okay, I got it. All right, so before I go, I'm going to start off with the Bible verse. Speaking of heritage, it's important that we value our heritage. And one Bible verse that I really love, and I feel that it has a strong meaning, is Hebrews 10:35-6. It says, "Do not throw away your confidence; it will be richly rewarded." We Ghanaians, we have a very interesting, complex culture that we should be proud of, and we need to build upon that confidence. And then another one is, but 1 Timothy 6-12. But godliness with contentment is great gain. So what that verse means to me is that, it's important to be happy with what you have as a culture. It's important to be confident and be proud of who you are. And so I think this verse fits very well with the topic that we're going to be talking about today. Okay. All right. So, I don't know if you all have ever heard this phrase, but Africa, a lot of people say Africa looks like a question mark. It has many questions for us, and many questions that have not been answered. But today, I really hope that we are able to clear some questions about Africa. For a long time, people have mislabeled it as the dark continent, but there's a lot of amazing and beautiful things about our continent, and particularly our country as well, Ghana. All right, now speaking of Ghana, this presentation was more so designed for the youth. I like to teach a lot, so I like teaching. So especially teaching children about the history and different cultures of the world is something that I'm really big on. And I hope there's a lot of young people. If there's any young people out there, does anyone know what Ghana is named after? So imagine it's the year 1957. Kwame Nkrumah. Ghana has just been just won independence from England, the first African country to do so. Kwame Nkrumah, he doesn't want to keep the name Gold Coast because that's something that the British imposed. So he chooses a name, and that name is Ghana. Ghana, interesting. What is Ghana named after? Is it named after a person? What is Ghana? Is it a person? Is it a bird? Is it a type of fruit? Is it named after the land? Is it a place? What is Ghana? So let's see. Any young people out there, any kids out there, do you know what Ghana is named after? Let's see. Let me try to see what you're writing in the chat. Okay. So named after okay. Oh, wow, yeah, wow. Hey, Barbara's there. Baby, can I answer any questions? Yeah, it's just young people. I just want to see what the young people know. Okay, because even in my class, we did learn. Yes, very good. So the Ghana Empire. Okay, the Ghana Empire, that's interesting. So what is so special about this empire? Well, I'm going to present some information about the Ghana Empire. Let's see if you all are impressed. Okay, so so the Ghana Empire was the first major empire in West Africa. So it lasted from 300 BC, 300 until 1100 AD. Okay, so it lasted for 800 years. Wow. So 800 years. Do you all know how old America is? Can anyone in the chat just put how old you think America is? Or America's been independent since what, 1776 till now. So that's what 240 something years? Ghana lasted for 800 years. Now, the thing with the Ghana Empire is that it's not located in Ghana per se. So it's actually located, if you go there, you look at a map, it's located near Mali and Mauritania. So it's a little bit further away from the Ghana Empire. And by the way, its real name wasn't the Ghana Empire. It was actually called the Ouagadougou Empire. And the capital was Kumbi Saleh. Okay, that's interesting. All right, so I don't know how many of y'all, for my young people out there, how many of y'all have ever touched gold or ever Do any of y'all own gold or ever seen gold before? So if you have, so if you see a gold bar, how much do you think a gold bar is worth? So like this little gold bar about the size of a little chocolate candy bar, how much do you think it is worth? So like say if you had to take it to, say if you had to sell it, how much would you sell this little gold bar for? So the young people, can you just put it in the chat? Let's see what you all's guesses are. Even if the older people, if you all want to try and guess, how much is a bar of gold? Can anyone guess? Does anyone have any idea? Okay. Bummer is laughing. Okay. So Dr. Bibi Bachi, wow. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna just go ahead and go ahead with it. So 1 kilogram of gold is worth $60,000. Okay, that's interesting to know. Now, imagine a place that was so rich that animals, sorry, hold on, let me, imagine a place that was so rich where you had animals wearing gold, animals, horses, little children wearing gold. That was Ghana. For example, let me read this excerpt. At the door of the pavilion are dogs of excellent pedigree. Round their necks, they have collars of gold and silver studded with balls of the same metals. Okay, pretty impressive. All right, in the chat, if you want to put it on there, what is the richest country in the world right now? Does anyone know what is the richest country in the world? I'll just tell you, it is Qatar. Qatar is rich because of oil, but to actually think about it, Ghana was literally like the Qatar of that time. So what was the reason? What was the reason they were rich? They had gold and they had salt. Not just little gold, a lot of gold. They had the richest gold mines on the planet, according to an Arab historian named Al-Hamdani. And so the thing that they would do is that in the northern half, they would trade in gold, and the southern half, they would trade in salt. Okay, I can understand the gold part, but why is salt such a big deal? Well, the thing about salt is that, I mean, everybody today has eaten something with salt in it. Can you imagine going a whole week without eating salt? Well, that's how a lot of people around the world had to, that's what happened to a lot of people around the world, especially in places like Europe, because they didn't have salt. So they literally had to go to places or halfway around the world just to get salt. And guess what country had some of the highest deposits of salt? Ghana. Yes, that was Ghana, the Ghana Empire in Africa. And the capital was Kumbi Saleh. Now, it wasn't all giggles and ice cream because, that capital was also center of the slave trade. So they would actually have slaves who would work for other Africans, digging gold in the gold mines and also digging the salt mines as well. So as they were saying before, Ghana was one of the richest places. The Ghana Empire was one of the richest places in the world. And it was very well organized. By the way, it wasn't called Ghana. Remember, it was called Wagadu. So where did they get that name from? But I'll let you guys know later on. So one thing that really changed the game in Ghana was the fact that they domesticated camels. So with that, of course, they didn't have cars back then, but with that, now they were able to transport their gold and make money from it. And people that would come into Ghana, particularly the Arabs, they would get taxed 1 gold bar for coming in and coming out. So they were just making money like it was nothing. So, so here's where we come with it. The name Ghana Empire actually means warrior king. So the warrior king actually, it was a title. So it says, I'm a king and I will fight to defend my title. So, they were good with iron. So when you're good with iron, you can make tons of weapons. And so they knew how to, they actually worshiped blacksmiths, people that could make iron. And they revered the king as someone who was half God. But, the historians, they said the king was always just decked out in gold, the nicest linen, the nicest clothing. His horses were covered in gold. His kids, gold, everything just gold, like it was just plastic. That was Ghana. And they had a huge army of 200,000 soldiers, 40,000 archers. That's even bigger than the Ghana army to today. But what happened? You know, all things come to an end. And so what happened with the Ghana Empire was that they were invaded from their Muslim neighbors to the north called the Almoravids. And so, you know, Ghana put up a good fight for almost 200 years, but, you know, the empire broke apart. The Muslims imposed their religion on the local people. Many people fled. And so Ghana broke up and was absorbed to the next growing empire called Mali. And if you think Ghana is good, wait till you see Mali. You guys are going to be amazed. Now, especially my young people again, I don't know how many guys have ever heard of the movie The Lion King. I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about it. Even when I was young, they had Lion King was pretty popular in the cartoon form. I know they just made a new version. Well, I don't know if you guys knew this, but where they got the Lion King was from Sunjata. Sunjata was the first king or the establisher of the Mali Empire. And so that's where the Mali Empire gets named. So the name Sunjata literally means Lion King. By the way, for how do you say lion in tree? Can anyone type that in the chat? I'm sorry, I'm kind of...
Jata.
Yep, Jata. So now you see where I'm going with this. So in Mali, the king's name is Sunjata, and in tree we say lion, Jata. I wonder where that comes from. So yeah, so Mali means where the king lives. So in his reign from 1235 to 1260, and look at a map from Senegal all the way down to the end of the border of Niger, huge empire. And so we get a lot of some words from like Danso, Manso, like we get that from the Mali Empire. Now, that's not just the only impressive part. Another thing about him is he was very rich. Oh, sorry, then there came another king named Mansa Musa, who was very rich. Now, does anybody know today, I'm pretty sure you all know, it can be a young person, older person, who is the richest person in the world today? And how much is he worth? Does anybody know? You can type that in the chat or just tell me. Who is the richest person today?
Elon Musk. Is it Elon Musk?
No, it's not even Elon Musk anymore. It goes back between Elon Musk. Right now, the last time I checked, it was Jeff Bezos, and he's close to what, $200 billion? They say actually Mansa Musa was the richest person that ever lived in history. You know how much he was worth? Okay, now if you all have heart problems, don't listen to this because this will just blow your mind. Mansa Musa was worth $400 billion. I'm not making this up. You can look it up online. Mansa, $400 billion, richer than any person that had ever lived in America, Asia, China. The richest person is an African, Mansa Musa. And he was rich for the same reason that Ghana was rich. Two words, gold and salt. And so Timbuktu, a lot of times we hear that word Timbuktu and you think, oh, it's some foreign off backward place. Timbuktu was a center of learning. Universities, people come all over to learn in the major universities of Timbuktu. And so anyways, Mansa Musa, one interesting story about Mansa Musa was that he made a trip to Mecca. And on his trip, he had a huge caravan of like 70,000 people, with soldiers, slaves, all sorts of people walking with them. And everywhere he was going, he was just giving away free gold. Now, you know, people would say, okay, that's a good thing, but actually it's not, because it actually bankrupted the Egyptian economy for 9 years. Why? Well, just think about it. If you're giving away free, imagine if you come to here in Houston or Dallas and you go to McDonald's and you give everybody $1 million. Are you going to see any McDonald's workers? I mean, if someone comes to your job and gives you $1 million, are you going to be at work the next day? No. So that's what happened. He was just giving everybody free gold, and that didn't really help. You know, it didn't really help things. So, you know, Mali was just on top of its game, and Mali wasn't even an isolated place. A lot of people, particularly Arabs and Europeans, knew about the wealth and splendor of Mali. It was a major power, like maybe China or Russia. It was one of those countries that was well respected in the world. You know, a lot of times people don't know that Africans actually sailed. West Africans actually sailed. For example, Abu Bakari, he got in a ship when for some reason, he was a leader. he decided, you know what, let's go to the Atlantic Ocean. I want to see what's on the other side. He got 2,000 ships and went. Now, the thing about him is nobody knows what happened to him, but I don't know, maybe, you know, they were able to get to the other side, but it's, some people say yes, some people say no. So, but it's not something that people can prove. The Mali Empire was protective. You know, the Portuguese tried to invade the Mali Empire in 1456. Mali Empire wasn't having it. They had some of the best shooters and archers. They even though they didn't have guns at that time, those archers were so good, like they could literally just pierce your eyes from a mile away. So, you know, after, you know, the war with the Mali Empire, the Portuguese got the picture and said, you know what, we're just going to just trade. We're not going to try and colonize you anymore. So, yeah, you know, Mali Empire wasn't having that. They were a strong empire. But of course, you know, things happen, infighting, bad leadership, good leaders die, and you know, things get bad. And so this is where Ghana comes in. So, you know, that's where we had different groups, such as the Khans, migrate. So as you guys know, the Mali Empire doesn't exist anymore, and they broke off into different groups. And one group that broke off were the people called the Khans. Now, they migrated to Ghana in what is the real Ghana, the Ghana that we all know, in the 10th and 12th century. Why? So the reason why they were doing this is because, you know, when the Almoravids, the Muslims from the north, came to Ghana, they were trying to force everybody to be Muslim. The Ghana Empire wasn't a Muslim empire. The people still followed their traditional religion. And so, yeah, they went to that's the story of us. And so, you know, some Ghanaians came from the Mali Empire, some came from present-day Nigeria, even further from Nubia. And guess what they did? They said, you know what? We like gold, let's go look for gold in Ghana. So they started building different societies and empires. Now, one thing that I'm going to say is that, you know, a lot of times we get in the habit when we talk about African groups, we say, oh, tribes. We don't belong to tribes. Now, this is the reason why. We belong to ethnic groups. Now, the reason why is because, you know, well, let's look at it. You know, the UK has Scottish, English, Welsh. No one calls them tribes. Spain, you have the Catalans, Basques, Galicians. Nobody calls them tribes. France, did you know that only 50% of people only spoke French at the time of the revolution? You know, they have different languages and cultures there too. Same thing with Italy. By the way, I think the Italian toga looks like the kente, kind of reminds me of the Ashanti kente robe. But anyways, you know, Italy, they also have different cultures and ethnicities as well, but no one ever calls them tribes. Same thing with China. So why do they call us tribes? It's not. So why is that? Tribe is more so used to describe, you know, isolated societies that don't have a governmental structure. But as you guys know and already know, the Ghana Empire, the Ghanaian groups had structure. Okay. Oh man, sorry, I kind of beat myself. Who were the first people of Ghana? Well, you guys already saw the Guangs. I don't know how many of you guys have heard of the Guang people. In Ghana today, they make about 3%. But they were the first people to actually make it to Ghana. So they came to Ghana in 1000 AD, literally the first century. And so they said the closest language to the Guang dialect is Gonja. So they're related to the Gonjas as well. All right. So in the next slides, I'm going to be describing the different ethnic groups in Ghana. And let's see if you guys recognize any of them. So the first one I'm going to talk about is the Akhans. Now, the Akhans are the majority group. And so they arrived from the Ghana and Mali empires. And so I don't know if you guys knew this, but the first Akan state was Bono State, or the Bono Kingdom. And so the name Akan, so I looked it up, they said the name Akan means first, foremost, or enlightened. So like, you know, in Tree you say Adikain, first, Akan, or Kanye, light, enlightened. And so they say also, you know, the name tree, you know, I always wondered, where does the word tree come from? You know, you tell someone who's not Ghanaian that you speak tree. Oh, is it named after trees? No, it's actually named after Bonokin named Nana tree. And so that's where the name of the language comes from. Interesting. So They founded many different kingdoms, and they came looking for gold as well as, good farming land, and they definitely found that in Ghana. And so, they found gold in the 12th century at Troso River. So that's pretty interesting. Now, that's important because, in a lot of places, like for example, in South Africa, it was the Europeans who found gold. It wasn't the natives themselves, but in Ghana, we had already been mining gold and finding it already. And so, here are some more things that characterize Akan culture. You have the Adinkra symbols. And so these are kind of, I always say they remind me of emojis because they have different symbols, or they remind me of the Chinese characters that symbolize different things. So of course, one of my favorite, Jinyame, except for God, or in Chinchim twisting. So these all have very special meaning. And then kente cloth. That's also the group famous for kente cloth. They invented kente cloth in the 17th century. I don't know if you guys know the story about this, but there's two brothers, Kragu, I'm not saying Kragu, and Amaya. So they were just walking and they saw a spider. And so they were just looking at that spider, and they were just looking at it and say, hey, maybe I should make kente cloth out of this. And so after some experiments, they came up with a fabric, as we know all today, called kente cloth, and they showed it to the chief, and they showed it to their kid, and the rest is history. I mean, you just look at the immaculate designs of kente cloth. How many places do you see just, wow, like it's so many different designs and colors. And the cool thing about kente cloth, as some of you may know, is that each color has a meaning. So gold symbolizes status. Green symbolizes renewal. Blue symbolizes harmony. Red is passion. Black is unity. And so, they say kente cloth is Africa's most iconic fabric. That's the most recognizable fabric that comes from Africa. Yeah. And so, another interesting thing about the Akan, one interesting thing about Akan religion is that it wasn't what you call polytheistic. Well, it was very similar to Christianity. For example, we had one God. That God is Nyame. They had, well, the one interesting thing about him is that he had a wife. God had a wife, Asasia, and two children. So that's kind of different from our beliefs. But they believe in lesser spirits called Abusum, angels. And so people pray to those angels and pour libations, and people still do, right? God of Techiman, Atanje, Subin Bedu, all these different gods of areas. And so, yeah. And so that's why when the missionaries came to Ghana, it was very easy for Akans to accept Christianity because so many things were so similar to the religion. And, they had a legal system as well. So, crimes were considered sins. So, cursing the king, doing witchcraft, murder, and of course, and all these other things, capital punishment. The Ashanti Empire was the different Akan empires, especially the Ashanti, were very strict. There was very little crime, very little corruption. Of course, things weren't perfect, but they were really on point with a lot of things. They had trial by jury. Even today in Ghana, we still have traditional courts. So if you don't like what the other courts are doing, if you have a problem, you can still settle it in traditional court. All right, and so not just with the Khans, you had so many different subgroups. You had the Kwawus, even to this day, they're known for business, the Akuya Pems. So Akuya Pem is it comes from the word Unku Apem. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but it means 1,000 groups. 1,000 groups came together. They're known for being probably the most polite people in Ghana. And then Nzima, the name Nzima, it actually comes from a cinema, like sharpened sticks. So when the Nzimas came to fight the Ashantis, the Ashantis had guns and weapons and everything, and then Nzimas, they only had sticks. And they kind of felt sorry for them, so they didn't fight the war. So yeah, that's where the word Nzima comes from. And then Fante, they means literally the half that left. And so, they were one of the first people to break off from the Bono kingdom, and they settled all the way down to the coast. And then you had the Denshiras, who were enslaving the different groups. particularly the Ashantis. Now, back then, the Ashanti Empire didn't exist. People came together. They said, you know what? We are going to fight against these Denchuras. They're just doing us wrong. And so they came together, and all these different groups, they put aside their differences and said, let's get together. Why are you getting together? Because, you know, in Tree, they would say, Osa Inte. So literally because of war. So the name Ashanti literally means because of war. Wow. So that's deep. All right, and so speaking of the Ashanti Empire, you know, they say the Ashanti Empire is one of the most prolific and studied empires in sub-Saharan African history. You know, the gold, the kente cloth, artistry, military prowess. We'll be learning about that in later on. And so, most of the, all the grown people know about this already. Osei Tutu founded Ashanti Empire in 1670. Komfo Noche, Ashanti people. By the way, I don't know if you guys know. Sorry. It's kind of an echo. Yeah, I don't know if you guys already know this, but they said Komfo Noche was actually an albino. So Komfo Noche was one of the priests that was, I could say, that was working with Osei Tutu to found the Ashanti Empire and found Kumasi as well. And so it's interesting, if you go to Kumasi, as some of you guys have probably seen, they have this thing, Komfo Noche put down a sword in the middle of the ground and said, this is where we'll start with the Ashanti nation. And this sword, nobody will be able to move it. And if we move this sword, that's the end of the Ashanti nation. Until this day, nobody has been able to do this. So it's pretty amazing. And so, we were reading about the different empires. We're talking about the different empires. One interesting thing about the different empires, like the Ashanti Empire, is that, Timbuktu is gone, Kumbi Saleh has gone. Guess who is still there? Kumasi. And it still exists to this day. So that's pretty amazing. So, the Khans were known for their iron making and blacksmith abilities. This is very big because, the white supremacists in Europe, they're saying, oh, we're just using sticks and stones and we're backward. When we're sitting there making iron that looks like anything from Europe, even into this day. I don't know if you guys knew this. In Kumasi, Swami Magazine is Africa's largest industrial area, and you'll see some people do amazing things with their cars and with iron and metal. Ghanaians still have that, technical spirit. They were skilled at wood carving. 50% of all the timber today comes from the Ashanti region. The talking drum. A drum that that beats so loudly that you could extend messages for 200 miles. And so they would use it to call chiefs to meetings, to warn of danger, broadcast announcements. They were used for proverb ceremonial presentations, so many things, just pure amazing. Adowa, the interpretive dance, and the Ashanti architecture. So the British, when they came to Kumasi, for example, Thomas Bowditch, he was a writer. He was so amazed with impressed with the structure and layout of the city. Because, he was expecting some type of primitive stuff. And he was like, wow, these are the type of buildings they're building in, and especially at that time where people looked down on Blacks and Africans, this was the stuff that was going on. I mean, look at this. This is really impressive. I really liked this type of architecture. And the British were obsessed with Ashanti architecture. In fact, they took one Ashanti prince, Kofi Nti, who was good at designing. They took him all the way to Trinidad to design buildings for him. So like buildings like this is like a station, was designed by a Ghanaian. I don't know how many of you guys knew that. But one thing, remember that, like we were saying before, Ashanti Empire is one of the few monarchies that still exist. And then the gold. They just had the wealthy people in Ashanti Kingdom wore gold like it was plastic. And this, yeah. So, the Akans, they have different names, have different meanings as well. So, my name, Yaboa, or our family name, Yaboa, is helper. So, Yaboa Nipa, we help, right? And so, names like Owusu and Woso, Strong World, Mensa, Third Born, or Ajimine, Save the Nation, Obeng, Smart. All these names had rich meaning. So the Ashanti culture is very rich, but the Ashanti culture is not the only, or the Kan culture is not the only rich culture. You had the Dagombas. And so these are people migrated from Lake Chad all the way in northern Ghana to the northern part of Ghana. By the way, here's some Dagomba words. So the way you say how are you is kawula, and you would say, you would reply alefe. So alefe means I'm fine. Kawula, and then alefe. But so this empire was established by Na Bewa. And so you know, they one thing they're known is for their good horsemanship. They brought lots of horses. And so if you go to northern Ghana today, you'll see people riding horses. And this is just insane. A lot of people in northern Ghana, they have this festival called Bugum Chugu. Bugum Chugu is a festival where people actually celebrate the fire. And they actually, you'll see people dancing in fire and they won't even get burnt. And then, you know, they had interest in architecture. You know, I love my architecture. And then another thing is they're one of the few people on this planet that have been able to tame crocodiles. So if you go to Paga, you'll see people that have tamed crocodiles. All right, so next stop, we're going to the Volta region in eastern Ghana. So the way you say hello is efwa, or sorry, how are you is efwa. And then if you're talking to a group of people, say mefwa, and then you would reply mefo, that means I'm fine. That's eve. And now, if some of you know eve, maybe I'm saying it kind of wrong, but yeah. Anyway, so the Ewe people actually came to Ghana from Togo through way of Nigeria as well. Now, I've been looking for the meaning of the word Ewe. I can't find it. If any of you all are able to tell me, please let me know. I looked up and down for it. I couldn't find it. But, you know, one word that the Ewes are known as is Aigbe. That's another word for Ewes. Now, Aigbe literally means Ai refuses or says no. So what's the story behind that? So basically, the Ewes and the Ga people both migrated from Nigeria, Ile Ife, and then also to Togo. Now, when the Ewes left Togo to come to Ghana, and the Ewes, they came to Ghana around the same time, 13th century. And so the Gas went to Accra. And the Ewes, they went to, they sent out some people to go to the Ewe area, and they say, hey, let's come down to Accra. And they said, no, we don't want to come. And so they say Agbe, so literally means no. Ai says no. So that's the story behind that. All right, and so they came to Ghana from Notsi, Togo. And so the reason why is they were escaping a brutal ruler called Agor Koli. He was a very mean person. He would kill people left and right. One day he decided to just get up and kill all the elderly people in Togo. That's the kind of stuff he would do. And he actually kept the people chained up in some town or some walled city or enclave. And so they couldn't get out. So one thing that they did is they just poured water on the buildings and poured stuff to block structures. And eventually they escaped Nazi Togo and then came to Ghana. So that's the story behind that. By the way, Akans are not the only people with subgroups. The Ewes also have subgroups as well. So you have the Anlo, which is by the sea, live in Keta. That's actually where Rollins is from. And then you have the Albanors, who are in the more mountainous inland part. So those are the main differences. So that's why, you know, in Tree, we always say Angwanafo, like those are the Anlos. Sometimes we always think all Ewes are Anlos, but no, they're two major groups. So yeah, and so one interesting thing about them is they also wear kente cloth as well. Their chiefs always are supposed to keep their heads covered. So yeah, if you ever see an Ewe chief without his, you'll never see an Ewe chief without his head being covered. As you can tell, this guy's not a chief. And also, you know, during a funeral, they're not allowed to see corpses. And the interesting thing about Ewes, though, is that they never had a single king. So they were, you know, kind of scattered into different chieftaincies and groups. So next one is the Ga Adangbe people, or the Ga Dangme people. And so do you guys know where they get the word Ga from? So they actually get the word Ga from the tribe of Gad. Yes, and then Dangme is Dan. So they believe, if you ask the Ga people, they say, oh, we came from Israel. We're the tribe of Gad and Dan. And so that's where it comes from. And then the way you say, how are you in Ga? I don't know if you all can say this. I'm not good in Ga. Te oyo
Te oyo ten.
Sorry, how do
Te
you say
oyo
it?
ten.
All right, very good. Yeah, te oyo te. I kind of, and then you'd say meyo
Miyo
ajoban,
jupa.
meyo, yeah, meyo juban. All right, yeah. Yeah, I'm getting there. So yeah, so they arrived in Ghana around the 1400s, and so they arrived under their name, their king Ayi Kushi. So about 1483. And one interesting thing about the Ga people, so if you go to Accra, and especially the Ga areas like in Bukom or Jamestown, they have what you call, of course, the older people know this, the Homowo Festival. And so that literally means Hooten at hunger. So basically, this is in remembrance of a major famine that hit the Ga people in the 16th century. So it's just a very interesting celebration that they have. And they also have what you call the fantasy coffin. So around that era, some people they get buried in coffins that reflect things that they like. So you can get buried in a coffin that, like me, I'd like to get buried in a coffin that looks like an airplane because I like to travel. Or like if you like, in this guy, I guess he was a fisherman. He likes fish, so that's the kind of coffin he has. So that's pretty cool. And then also, speaking of festivals, they also have a twin festival. They celebrate twins, and so it's very interesting to see that as well. But Ghana is a melting pot. If you compare to other African countries where, you know, you have like in Ethiopia right now, they have the Tigrays versus the Oromos and all these tribalist, well, I'm tribalist, but ethnic conflict. But in Ghana, we have one of the highest interethnic marriage rates in all of Africa. We are a true, America is not the only melting pot. If you look at our leaders, Akufo-Addo, he's a Khan, his wife is Ga. Mahama, his wife is Northerner. Well, if you look at all the leaders, no leader has ever married somebody from his own ethnic group. I might be wrong, but not that I've seen. Mahama, he's Northerner. His wife is a Khan. Jerry Rollins was Scottish and Ewe. His wife is Ashanti Akan. Kwame Nkrumah's wife was Egyptian. And even the Ashanti and his wife is not even Ashanti. So, we are a mixed melting pot of a country. And that's amazing because, a lot of African countries have been torn apart. You look at Rwanda, 1 million Tutsis dead in the course of the 3 months. All right, so next, the arrival of the Europeans. This is where it gets a little bit complicated. You already know what's about to happen. So what's interesting about Ghana is that Ghana was the first sub-Saharan country to come into contact with the Europeans. So another thing is that, we had more variety of Europeans than any other African country. Like, if you look at Senegal, it was mostly the French. If you look at Angola, it was mostly the Portuguese. Ghana, we had Portuguese, Danish, Dutch, German, Swedish, British, of course, and then, the Swiss, the Basel people. What were they coming for? What do you think was so attractive that you would get all these? We literally had the whole entire European Union in Ghana. What were they coming for? I think you already know. Is that gold? Is that ivory? Is that timber? And unfortunately, they were also wanted to trade something that, you never really thought could even be traded. So in Ghana, they had 30, wow. In Ghana, there were about 45 forts built by Europeans. Ghana had 32% of those 45 forts. So Ghana, the Europeans were all over Ghana. And so the first Europeans were the Portuguese. And the thing with them, they found so much gold, they call that area the gold mine. And that's where the word Elmina, Damina in Portuguese comes from. And then come along the Dutch, and they're coming to trade, and they're just making money. So they're just making money. So the Dutch, they build all these forts at Comenda, the central region. And it's just insane how much money and wealth they are making in Ghana because there's so much gold, it's not even funny. And so later on, the Portuguese actually get kicked out of Ghana, but now people aren't sure if they got kicked out of Ghana by the Portuguese or the Fantis. And but either way, we still get some words in Tree from Portuguese. So for example, What's the word for pig in tree is what? Precon. So it's from the Portuguese word porco, which is pig. And then we get some word like encrata, that's paper import or like paper document. In Portuguese, you say carta. So that's the influence they had on us. All right, so yes, so speaking of gold, this is why the Europeans were there. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Ghana accounted for 36% of all the world's gold output. 30, let that sink in. 36%. Just one small little spot. Ghana is about the size of Oregon. 1/3 of the world's gold pit between 1493 and 1600. And so, you know, the Europeans, they were building forts because the Europeans didn't get along with each other. So they were building these forts not just for the Africans or the local Ghanaians. They were building it to keep away from the French, the Portuguese. They didn't. It was a free for all. Now this is something that would change our history forever, and it's amazing how just something on the other side of the world can change something on the other side of the world, and that is when Columbus came to the New World, the first Europeans to land in the New World from Spain. They came and decided that, hey, you know what? We're going to enslave the Native Americans because we are going to conquer this place and they're going to dig our gold and stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, the Native Americans died because number one, the Europeans had diseases that they weren't, I could say, they weren't immune to, and so almost 90% of the local population died. So a priest living in Santo Domingo suggested that, hey, you know what? Since the Native Americans are dying, why don't we bring the Africans? They're stronger, they're resistant to our diseases. So why don't we do that? And the rest is history. So after that, the Europeans, instead of just gold, they were also trading in slaves. And so, you know, Ghana is not the only place that has slave forts, but we have more slave dungeons than any other place in Africa. And we've done, sorry, what was I saying? Sorry, yeah, so we have more slave dungeons than any other place in Africa, but only 10% of slaves came from Ghana. So the majority of slaves came from like Nigeria and Angola and Cameroon and other places like that. But Ghana was a stop depot for slaves. And I mean, you all know the story. They would take them and pack them in like sardines. If you ever go to the Elmina Castle or Cape Coast Castle, some rooms, if they misbehaved, they just take them in some rooms, a dark room, and just leave them there to rot. Some of the most awful stuff you ever see. The door of no return, where people would never get to see their family, never get to be in their homeland ever again. Just awful stuff. And you know, some of the worst things was the Zong massacre. I don't know if you guys have heard about that. You know, they'd pack the ship so much, and sometimes they'd have more people than they need. So you know what they would do? They take people and just throw them in the sea like nothing. This was the kind of nonsense that was going on. But you know, another thing about Ghana is they said that Ghanaians, one reason why they didn't get that many or high percentage, it was only 10%, is because they said Ghanaians were the worst slaves ever. So the British, because they didn't know much about the difference between the Khans and, you know, the different ethnic groups, they called them Cormontis. And the reason why is like a mispronunciation of the word Kromanse. It's a fort in Western Ghana. And so let me tell you what these slaves from Ghana would do. Mutinies all over the place. So in Jamaica, you know, they say about 60% of Jamaicans can trace their ancestries just to the Ashanti people alone. And that's why their flag looks the way it does. So if you guys look at the Jamaican flag, like you see right here, it's the same colors as the Ashanti flag. And if you go to Jamaica, I don't know how many you all have been to Jamaica. This is their currency. So this is of Nani. So she was a Khan runaway slave. And she's a very celebrated figure in Jamaican culture. So let me tell you all these wars that were happening and rebellions. First Maroon War, led by a slave named Kujo. The Maroons, they started breaking. Maroons is basically another word for runaway slave. So they would break away and make their own town. So one town they made was called Akompong, which is a champong. You know, it's a mispronunciation, or Kujo town, or Moortown, all these different places. Virgin Islands, 150 African slaves from Ghana revolted against the owners and managers of the island's plantation. I mean, a lot of these rebellions were suppressed, but one major component is that so many slaves came from Ghana, and the Ghanaian slaves, so many slaves that came from Ghana were troublemakers. And so, in fact, there was a bill passed by one major British colonialist writer. His name was Edward Long. This is what he said. He said, no more Chromantins, no more Ghanaians. So he said, such a bill, if passed into law, would have struck at the very root of evil. No more Chromantins would have been brought to infest this country but instead of their savage race, let's find more docile people who are better inclined to peace and agriculture. So I take that as a compliment. Because the Khans just basically knew that the Khans and the Ghanaians, they knew that, you know what, slavery is just not for us, and we will do anything to fight it. Now, this was just a bill. The British parliaments, they said, no, we're going to still bring them in. Guess what happened? More revolts. Jamaica, Westmoreland Parish, 32 British people killed. Jamaica, 8-month conflict between the Maroons. Barbados, the largest slave, this was the Busia Rebellion, biggest rebellion in the country. Same thing in Guyana, a slave named Kwamina, one of the largest rebellions in Guyana's history. And so they just say, now one reason why is because Ghana was having so many wars. And so they weren't just picking up farmers, they were picking up actual military people. And so guerrilla warfare wasn't something that was new to them. A lot of these slave ships didn't even get across the Atlantic. They say almost like 20 to 25% of slave ships didn't even make it across the Atlantic because a lot of these slaves would fight to the death. They said, you know what, we are not going to be slaves. And so one British person made the observation. He says, most slave merchants came to understand that the Khans, while primarily peaceful and hardworking, were proud and fiercely independent people who fought strongly to protect their territory from invasion by other groups. So they were just fighting people. And so, they say like Harriet Tubman, she says that her ancestors, her parents were full-blooded Africans who were brought, and they believe themselves to be from the Ashanti people. And even to this day, if you go to Jamaica, you'll see different communities of people who are from descendants from Maroons Maroons who were escaped slaves or runaway slaves, and they still have their same communities intact, especially Maroon Town, Kampong, Jamaica. I went to one in Colombia, actually. So anyways, all right, so now we get down to the Ashanti Empire. So the Ashanti Empire controlled a large part of Ghana. So this is the time when the Ashanti Empire was just trying to control the country. And of course, you just have wars all over the place. What do you all type in the chat? Okay. You said a lot of Jamaicans still eat our food. Yeah, it's scary. Like you will think if you see Jamaicans, a lot of them, they look just like Ghanaians. It's like, wow. Yeah, so I actually went to one of the Palenqueros in Colombia. It was really cool. Okay, so we're almost there. Okay, so the Ashanti-Fanti War. So they had so many wars: the Ashanti-Fanti War, the Ga-Fanti War, Ashanti-Achim-Akwepim War. But groups like the Gombas, they were very loyal to the Ashanti king, and also the Anlos. They never fought the Ashantis. The British and the Dutch, they all came to terms with the Ashanti Empire. They said, you know what, we're not going to attack you. We're almost towards the end. We're not going to attack you. We're going to have a nice little treaty. But they even signed a treaty. Now the Ashantis were expanding their army in 20,000 to make it a size about 20,000. But something that made the British kind of change their mind. And let me show you what made the British change their mind. Okay, so in 1819, a man named Thomas Bowditch visited Kumasi, and he was really impressed about what he saw. In Ghana, and one thing that the Europeans had to say about Ghana, not just the Ashanti Empire, but whether it was the Fanti part, the Ga part, or the Ewe part, or the Dagomba part, was that Ghana was a place where the Negroes were masters. What do they mean by that? They said that the power of the native African hierarchy was so strong that only whites were capable of negotiating with it, were competent to be posted there, because the people weren't just, docile and easy to control, that people would fight to if they felt that they were being disrespected or taken over. But look at the gold that the Ashantis and the Akans and the different groups like the Eves, the Dagombas all had. They had gold, just gold for days. And look at these sculptures. These were all carvings made in that empire. And so it made people really, it made the British really, get some ideas. And even that, they used what you call sikafuturo. And sikafuturo is basically gold dust. Their currency was gold dust. Wow. So think about it like this. Gold dust is very, like I say, gold dust, even gold dust is still very precious. So imagine living in a society where the currency is not paper, it's not shells, it's gold dust. So this made the British get some ideas. And so, it was amazing because, the British Empire was the biggest empire in world history at that time. When I say biggest, I mean biggest. 25 of the world's the sun never set on the British Empire. And, they conquered places like India. They conquered places all over Africa, a huge chunk of the world, biggest empire. And guess who had their sights on the Ashanti Empire? The British. Now, this should be easy, right? They can just come in and walk in and just take over. I mean, it's just a small little African country, right? So let's see what happens. First Anglo-Ashanti War, the Ashantis beat the British. So the first Anglo-Ashanti War broke out in 1823 and lasted 8 years. Started at the Battle of Nsamanko, and they beat them in all 8 battles. McCarthy, the British general, was killed, and his forces were totally wiped out. In fact, it was so bad, only 20 British people survived. This was really intense. The British were totally shocked. They felt, oh, I could just come here and just take over everything. And the Ashanti soldiers literally traumatized them. Remember, they weren't fighting with bows and arrows. They were fighting with guns. And so, the British retreated to Sierra Leone. All right, next one is, okay, hold on. All right, so next battle was the Battle of the Pra River. Neither side won, it was a stalemate. And then, okay, the third battle, the Battle of Amafo, hold on. Yeah, the Battle of Amafo, the British won. And so they actually, the British had come, they had better machinery, they had better guns. And so they were able to take over the Ashanti Empire. Well, they were able to come in and destroy the Ashanti Palace. And so they had to sign the Treaty of Fomena in 1874. And so, it was terrible. But one thing that the British noticed about the Ashanti palaces was that, they had lots of books and many different things that they didn't expect in an African country. And it was really hard for them to take over that empire. And almost 60% of the British army was dead by the time they were able to take over. Now, one thing that was interesting was the Battle of the Golden Stool. And that war was basically where Frederick Michael Hodgson, he said, you know what, give me your golden stool and I'm going to sit on it. And the Ashanti people said, no, you're not going to sit on that stool because that stool is the symbol of the nation. And so one lady rose up, and her name was Ya Asantwa. She was the queen mother of Ijusu. And she says, now I see that some of you fear to go forward to fight for our king. In the brave days of Osei Tutu, Okomfo Noche, and Opokuwari, chiefs would not sit down to see their king to be taken away without fine or shot. No European could have dared to speak to chiefs of Asante in the way the governor spoke to you this morning. Is it true that the brave Asante is no more? I can't believe it. I cannot go. I must say this. If you, the men of Asante, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight. So that's what they did. They fought hard. Of course, they didn't win, but they still was able to hide the golden stool. And even to this day, nobody even knows where the golden stool is. And so they were exiled to Seychelles. Now, they did a good job. I mean, they fought one of the world's biggest empires with very little outside help. And even if you go to Seychelles today, there's still some people who are descendants of Prempeh and the other soldiers that fought. So it was interesting because in Ghana never became in a situation like South Africa. They still had control of their land. They ruled indirectly through chiefs. Now, let me just ask you all this question. You can just type it in the chat. What do you think, instead of just killing the chiefs or the leaders or the kings, they just let them live? Does anyone know why? So we'll think about that one. Now, they did destroy the palace, and they did rebuild it though. And so, they controlled the colony. Um, and in 1878, Tete Kwashi, who was living in Fernando Po, brought something that would change Ghana forever, and that was cocoa. Ghana became the world's biggest producer of cocoa, which is used to make chocolate. There was exporting timber, and of course, they were exporting that gold. Ghana is one of the world's top 10 largest producers till this day. Now, in conclusion, Ghana was one of the most educated, even during colonial times, Ghana was one of the most educated countries in Africa. But, there was still work to do. King Prempeh, one of the kings, not the original Prempeh, but Prempeh's brother, he felt that one of the reasons why the Ashanti Empire fell was because of its failure to modernize. So he wanted to establish a university in Kumasi to help modernize Accra, modernize the Ashanti Kingdom. And so he started with Kumasi Technology College in 1852, and later it became known as Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology. And it's one of the largest. Today, it's one of the largest in Africa. And then also, they were also behind Prempeh College. Prempeh College is the best college, is considered to be the best high school in Ghana. And I don't know if you all know this, but they've won the National Robotics Championship 3 times in a row, between 2013 and 2016. The only high school in Africa to do so. They've beat schools from Japan, China, Korea, the United States. All right, so, Ghana was one of the most precious colonies to the British. Charles Arden Clark, he was the last governor of Ghana, because you had a man named Kwame Nkrumah who was thrown in prison, who was speaking out against the colonial government. That fighting spirit of the different groups in Ghana that were against colonialism was coming out again. And so, they didn't want to kill him because, if they did, it would have caused so much trouble. Same reason why they didn't kill the chiefs or the Ashanti kings and queens is because they knew that would really set people off. And so they held an election, and he also ran in that election from prison and won. And so the Gold Coast was seen as Africa's, and this was a major loss for the British because it was seen as Africa's most precious colony, one of Britain's most precious colonies in Africa. They had immense human capital and immense national resources. They had an advanced educational system. Even to this day, Ghana has the second highest percentage of people with a bachelor's degree at 19% in all of Africa. The only country that has more is Botswana. And also, this spearheaded the end of colonialism in all of Africa. So this brings us back to that Independence Day, literally almost 64 years ago. So when the leaders of the former British colony of the Gold Coast decided to pick a name for their country, they chose the ancient Empire of Ghana. Why? Well, think about it. It's more than just symbolic, because the modern Ghana that they envisioned, just like its namesake, was wealthy and had lots of gold and lots of power and lots of influence and lots of prestige and respect. The Ghana of today, or the Ghana that they were planning for, would not just be famous for gold, would not just be famous for wealth, but famous for so much more. So now, do you all think that he was able to live his dream? Or do you think the Ghana of today matches the Ghana of its namesake? And that is the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you all for this time. I really appreciate And then here's the works cited, and here's some of the sources that I have as well. But thank you all for this awesome opportunity. I really appreciate it, and I'll just end it there. Thank you all. If y'all want to, I think, is this time for questions, or I'm not sure where we're ending off, but.
Yeah, I think you can ask questions. Or we can ask questions, for a few minutes.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of went over my time, so I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're doing okay.
Yeah. So does anyone have any questions about
I don't have any questions. I don't have any questions, but I did want to say I studied the palenqueros in Colombia, and they look exactly like Ghanaians. Like I have a picture where one guy, I met him, he looks just like Osei Bismarck, my cousin. Like I wanted to tell you guys.
Yeah, you went to the Palenque in Colombia. I actually went to it's close to Cartagena. I forgot the name. It was one of the first ones, but I remember going there. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. Yeah. So also, if there's anything y'all want to add, like, you know, maybe I might have gave some incorrect information, or if you have anything to contribute or anything that's related to that, feel free to contribute. I always like to hear other people's perspective.
Yeah, recently someone from Jamaica, I'm not sure whether he postulated or that is what it is. He said that Jamaica, the name Jamaica is also an Akan name when they were waiting, thinking that they've been dumped there and they were waiting for a ship to come and pick them and send them back to Ghana. And the ship was not coming, so they said Jamaica. So Jamaica brought the word Jamaica. Yes, we are stuck.
Wow.
That's what they said, gave the name Jamaica.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Yeah, so it's interesting just to note how, you know, Ghana is a very small country, but we've had lots of influence on so many places around the world we don't even realize. All over Africa, the Caribbean, the US. It's really humbling sometimes. It's really amazing.
And personally, one thing I was amazed to hear today was Ga Adangwe, how they say it came from the God in Israel. I never knew that, or I've not heard that before.
Yeah. So so a lot of the guys, they say that they are one of the lost tribes of Israel. So that's where the word comes from. But does anybody know where the word Eve comes from? Because I've been looking all over for the name origin of Eve. I couldn't find it at all. Does anyone know? No.
You have to consult some of the elders.
Yeah. So Barbara, you said you were in that village. Which village were you talking about? The one in Jamaica?
No, the one in Colombia, the Palenquero village, the original one, with Bencos Biojo. Yeah. We were studying what makes them, where their spirit came from, that revolutionary fighting spirit, and how we could bring that to America and help in the educational system to free people from the idea that we as Black people are less than or beneath. But yeah.
I mean, one thing that, you know, me being an educator, especially working with social studies and things like that, is that a lot of times when people talk, for a long time, when people talk about Black history and African history, we just focus on the sad, pitiful parts like slavery and colonialism. But, you know, there are a lot of great, glorious things that happened that a lot of people don't pay attention to. Or a lot of our school books don't mention. So even in my classes, I made sure that, you know, I teach kids of all races about the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, make people understand that, you know, Africa had kingdoms. They weren't just primitive people. Yeah, you did have primitive societies in certain places, but, you know, Africa has range. Africans have range. You know, we can be rich, we can be poor, we can be backward, we can be innovative, we can be so many different things. And so I think that story needs to go out more and needs to be told more. One thing I kind of wish more in, you know, Ghanaian movies is that people talk more about the history. But, you know, in American and Asian movies, you have, you know, stories that tell about, you know, their kings and queens. But, you know, you watch Kumawood or Ghanaian movies, it's just comedy and juju and stuff like that. So I wish, you know, they would create more stuff to tell stories about, especially the young people, about their history and, you know, the good and the bad. So that we can.
For you.
I have a question.
My question for, oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the connection between Ghana and the Jews?
Ghana and the Jews. Well, you know, there's lots of different people that say that, you know, like the Igbos, they would say that they're Jews. You know, a lot of Igbos would say that they're the Jewish people. And then a lot of, you know, some Ashantis were saying that they were Jews. And then also the Ga people, because they, like I said, they believe that they immigrated from, a lot of people believe that they immigrated from Israel. And so, you know, some people say that the original Jews were Black, and that's been another debate, you know, because, you know, a lot of people have been able to prove that the Egyptians were Black. And, you know, when Moses went to, you know, in the Bible, when Moses came to Egypt, one interesting thing is, you know, people thought he was an Egyptian. He was able to blend in. So if Egyptians are Black, why would the Jews be able to blend in with them? That they must have been Black as well. So, you know, it's a big debate, and I can't see it is or it's not. But I don't know. I would say with the Ghanaians, a lot of, especially with the Khan groups, you know, the 7-day Sabbath and things like that. That's something that's also similar. So, yeah, that's how much I know about it. So, yeah.
My question is, sorry.
A follow-up, sorry. Yes, you've been traveling around. I recently, a Ghanaian musician said, I don't know if you know Prekese.
Oh, yeah, Prekese.
Yeah, they said it's only in Ghana and Israel.
Oh, really?
Have you seen it on any other place?
I think because I forgot the name for it. It's called Aden fruit, but I think Prekese is also in like different Asian countries as well. I'm not sure if it's just in Ghana and Israel, because I know Aden fruit it's considered a very, very healthy food. It has a lot of medicinal properties. But I'm pretty sure like Aden fruit is in other countries, particularly like India and other countries in Southeast Asia. But I have to just check that up. I mean, if y'all want to look into it. But yeah. All right, Uncle, you had a question?
Yeah, my question is, throughout your studies, if you have come across or found why Africa used to be glorious, rich in everything, how did it turn?
It's a lot. Well, one thing I would say that really set Africa behind was technology. We didn't really innovate in technology the Ashantis and the Dagombas and different groups, we got our guns from white people. But the problem is that we didn't improve on those guns. Like, that's one reason why the British were able to take over the Ashantis, because the British had invented machine guns. And, you know, if there was, you know, just like Samson in the Bible, you know, the key to his strength was his hair. You know, I think in as far as Europe was concerned, the key to European strength was their universities. Because Ghana, we have a lot of knowledge, especially like when it comes to medicine and other things. But the problem is, it's so much oral tradition. So, you know, we had schools, but, you know, in America, you had public school, you had universities, and Europe was, you know, it's interesting because the university actually came from Africa, it came from Morocco. The first university was in 857. And then the Europeans saw that and developed the University of Bologna. And, you know, that was a place where they could store information and they, you know, exchange ideas, you know, just like we do on this forum, or a lot of, you know, like we do in church, we exchange ideas and we compare notes. Oh, this, you know, this. So the Europeans were able to pull their information together. Whereas Africans, you know, one major thing that set Africa back is that we spoke too many different languages, so we really couldn't even communicate. You know, during slavery, one thing they would do is they put different groups from different tribes or ethnic groups because they didn't want them to be able to communicate with each other. They didn't want them to come. So I would say our inability to improve on things, sometimes we were too backwards, and then also, you know, a lot of us were just very disunited. Everyone had this priority and that priority. So people didn't come together and say, hey, let's put apart our differences and just work together. Because I mean, even with the Ashanti groups, you know, the Europeans, you know, the Europeans were using other groups. The soldiers in the British Army weren't only British. You know, the one thing that the British would do is they take over a country and they collect people. So, you know, you had Nigerians in the army, you had Indians in the army, you had Hausa people in the army, you had all different types of people in the army. And so the British were good at consolidating people, whereas a lot of the African groups, they were just literally on their own. The Ashantis had help from other groups as well, but it was kind of hard. So I would say I'm kind of rambling on a bit, but I would say if there was two things I'd say it's just basically our inability to improve on what we had. And also just the fact that a lot of us were just way too disunited. We had this priority and that priority. Because, yeah, I mean, unity, if you don't really have unity, you don't really have nothing. Even if you are very smart and intelligent, if you can't work together and get things done, you're just going to be in a big problem. So that's one thing that set Africa behind. Because yeah, we have resources, but how much of us have the education? Well, in Ghana, we're educated, but even in places like the Congo, you know, when Congo became independent, only 16 people in that entire country had a university degree. So yeah, they may have half of the forestry in Africa, they may have all the coltan and the cobalt and all these resources, but they don't even know anything about, you know, developing them. So, you know, education was key. I would say just lack of information really set us behind on a lot of things. So that's why I think building universities is just school and universities is very important to develop in a society. So that's why Prempeh, I think he was very smart in building that school, because he knew that, you know, if he had done it sooner, Ghana wouldn't have, you know, fell so easily. All right. Oh, yeah. Bad leadership. My goodness. But yeah. But, you know, bad leadership also comes from, it's easy to be a bad leader in a culture where people aren't educated or not modernly well educated. Because like here in America, you have, like, how can I say, in America, you know, most people in America are pretty well educated. So the stuff that you can get away in other countries in Africa and other countries around the world, you can't get away with that in America. So like right now, got about 20% of Ghanaians have a university degree. And 90%, if the rate was as high in Ghana as it is in America, maybe we wouldn't be having the same type of issues. But yeah, you can't ignore bad leadership. They made some terrible mistakes now and today.
All right.
I'm kind of running.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any other comments or questions?
We'll continue later. Thank you very, very much. I will let Pastor take over from here. Thank you, Gabriel, for this.
All right, yeah, thank you all. I really enjoyed talking with you all.
Mr. Gabriel, thank you so much for the information. A lot of information.
Yeah, almost too much.
Yeah. And I think every year we want to set aside a month around independence to reflect what the Lord has given to us and how much we can also contribute to the society. And I think that one of the reasons is that we belittle ourselves and we don't cherish what we have. That is why we are saying that we want to cherish our heritage. Because if we appreciate what we have and we add value to them, people will come and let's say also celebrate it. But we continue to make that mistake even now. We don't like what we have, and we just jump and grab what the others are having. And we want to just tell our youth that we have a lot that we can celebrate. We have the respect that I think others want to learn from us, but sometimes we just wait. And Ghanaians are fast in learning the other people other than promoting our own things. So thank you, and we will continue tomorrow. Edia Ochna, Ibenya time now, able questions be brave. Said what we want to gain is to be able to share our heritage and also to help build the kingdom of God with what the Lord has given to us as Ghanaians. Adia epese yehunu enono nti oka say me say we are always backwards. So what do we think? Maybe tomorrow, maybe if you can help answer that question to us. What can we also do to help build Ghana in our time? Instead of just reflecting back and see the mistake that the other people have done, what can we also do so that we can move forward and build Ghana? And until Ebra, Yura Homeda Concremo, Ebedamunia say, Numre, Mutimi Ebaye, na Afe Yada, Inuya Gabrans was information or Diama Yamepa, which I bet was. And until Mama Inina Yemra na yen celebrate our heritage, na baby a yeno, yen promote na yentimi move forward. Said Yebeya, Afi ye aim pan said we want to grow in Christ. The culture ye wa bit nyama ye nyino nyame Erade MY na intimi because intena Erade Yesu Kristo aba. What do you have? With me aye said Yebeya once so webwa society no. Now building the kingdom of God. If for a child, you will have made them with me and so I don't watch a radensa. Now I done as will be or dear big brame bompaye, once so bompaye. If I won't shake with your mensa or homeda con cream. Now and some I at any radem wine. Now you reflect on some of the qualities and young the man yen. Yes, so yeah, about America high within their boss society. Na ashe Yankopon din anymore. I'm talking my mom pay. Yankopon any a bank is here too many hodin ra. Rea da was say wapa wakwa Gabra so na fi wakasa achire yen. Aya niema bibra ye wo. Erade wo na wo de ma yen. Niema bibre say mistake say there and there ni nyina bibre efan o mansa. Na ya dwendwene ho anwumre yimu bi yempanimfo no bebre aye mistakes here yanso yenso so yebe na ibitimi aye na afi yenso so yepan yisu no yetimi aboa ne abuild bebe wo bia ene Ghana ene your kingdom so that when you come yenso so akra yetimi ye no wama yetimi enya esoaba na wetimi ama din aka waheni yanwumre so be shra wakwa Gabra edi amaye na we shra obi bia oba wanim anwumre na bra yewura homedai mu so se hwie won shra no egue so na ebra yesua yen heritage no boy na niema papa yo mu a bitimi aboye Yem pursue na intimi enfamwa wa juma enfamwa bebe will be said ye be ya oba yenso kakra ye no obetu say ya fata na odien akwakodidi na ensanda mre yo nsem na mede o mai nyina ekra ehye ba ye free lie you know Lord continue to abide with us. Let your presence be with all of us so that at the end of the day, at the end of this week, we will be able to reflect what you have given to us as Ghanaians, as Africans, so that at the end of the day, we will contribute to building society in your kingdom that is soon to come. I don't tell you, Maria, there was a chranka being by what you for me. You never used to be Monty. Amen.
Yo, Davina Sibium Sana Juicy by the Kai. Yeah, Yanko Pondiama, Yama in Ghana. A bright is here, home for China, Yanko Swa, Mompa, and my home. I may watch now, and